All right, so yeah, let's get started. And I'd like to welcome everyone to the 2018 Social Media Summit for the construction industry. My name is Neil Brown. I'm the chairman of the Construction Marketing Association. And with me today are two esteemed panelists, Deborah Rial, social media consultant, and most recently with Construct Connect. And Kate Fisher, social media strategist and content director for Hanley Wood, the construction publishing giant. So let's take a look at our agenda for today. And the first thing I'd like to point out is that we do have a hashtag for the event that is CMA Social 18. So please use that for live updates if you'd like to do that. And as CMA, we will be pushing out some updates as well. So again, welcome to the Construction Marketing Association. We do have a couple of sponsors that I will introduce shortly, Nespro PPE and Modern Marketing Partners. And the first thing we're going to do is summarize our annual survey, our social media survey, that is now in its 7th or 8th year. So we'll go through those results. I will do that. And then I'll turn it over to Deborah Rial and Kate Fisher. And then, of course, we want to encourage questions. And I would like you to use the GoToWebinar control panel to pose your questions early and often, as we will get to the earlier questions first. And we do like to finish up before the end of the hour. So we may not be able to take all questions and could possibly follow up afterwards as well. And then finally, this presentation, this PowerPoint, has a number of social media resources in the appendix, which have links in them. And so this presentation, in that regard, this presentation will be made available to all that have registered. And within 24 hours, you will receive an email from CMA with a link to this presentation. So don't worry about taking copious notes here. So I do want to just mention our sponsors, our two main sponsors. Nespro PPE is electrical safety equipment and clothing and such for high voltage electrical applications. And Modern Marketing Partners is a marketing agency that offers contractor website packages. And so both of these logos, when you receive the presentation, will link to the respective websites. So with that, I would like to get right into the survey results. And our first question is the most obvious: do you employ social media? And this, I'm happy to say, this is the first year that we had 100% of the survey respondents say yes. Last year was a mere 97%. So it's always been high, but when we first started out, it was in the 70s, and then so the first year we have achieved 100% adoption of social media, which I don't think surprises anyone. Our next question, and I hope some of you on the call participated in the survey. Our next question is, do you manage it internally or externally, meaning using an outside consultant? And this year was 94%, so almost the entirety managing social media internally. And this number was 91% in 2017, so just a slight uptick there. So our next question then is the types of social media used and ranked by most to least, and LinkedIn, you know, is not surprisingly the largest, followed by Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Google Plus, Pinterest, House, and forums was something that we've had in the past and had higher percentages of. Now, our next slide is going to show the comparison between 2018 and 2017. So I want to just point out some of the deltas or the changes, and we really had big jumps across most networks. LinkedIn going from 92% to 98%. Facebook going from 85 to 96%, so very significant increase there. Twitter 74 to 78%. YouTube 56 to 61% this year. And real big surprise for me was Instagram jumping from 46% to 59%. So lots of big jumps there, and then balanced out by Google Plus, Pinterest, and House. So our next question is, have you used paid social media advertising? And this is a pretty significant change as well. We had 49% not using any kind of paid social, and last year this number was close to 70%. So we continue to see paid social advertising increasing substantially, and not surprisingly, Facebook being number one, and then followed by Instagram, which is also not a surprise. So good information here. So this is a bit of an eye test, but it's an important question. Which social networks are most effective or least effective for construction marketers? And Facebook is topping out LinkedIn for the first time ever. So perhaps we have some consumer construction brands on the survey this year, but last year LinkedIn was the most effective at 46%, and LinkedIn has dropped precipitously in this survey. So I'm not really sure why, but I do understand why Facebook would be extremely effective. And so then we see the other networks of YouTube, and really what I'm looking for is, least effective. Is there some that, no, we understand that House wouldn't be relevant to a lot of different marketing scenarios, only a business to consumer scenario or remodeling scenario. But Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube being extremely effective still. So let's talk about social media objectives, and we've identified 4 here. And the respondents agreed that awareness, building awareness was the top objective for 59%, whereas search rankings were the least amount of objectives at 37%. Other objectives include sales leads and website traffic. So these are all very great objectives. And then we end up comparing that to results. So I think this is a very important slide, but so what were your social media results? And awareness is top again, outpacing objectives at 70%, and website traffic being a pretty significant result in the number 2 position anyway. But sales leads being relatively low with 51% as least results, and along with improved search rankings. So some good insights here from our survey. And of course, we wanted to understand who was filling out the survey. And as you can see, it's not a bunch of small companies, which is very prevalent in the construction market, a lot of small construction firms, but we also have 16% that are 1,000 plus employees, and another 14% is 250 to 1,000. So we've got a really good cross section of company size here in this survey. And then here is the company classification or type, with construction service firms of all types leading that classification, followed by commercial consultants, which would include, I believe, it would include marketing and media, building materials manufacturers or distributors, architectural engineering, equipment manufacturers, distributors, trade contractors, and home builders and remodelers, rounding that out. So again, a good cross section answering the survey. So with that, I'm going to introduce again our first panelist, Deborah Riel. And Deborah, take it away.
Thank you, Neil. You can move to the next slide. There we go. My objectives today were to give you some tips on posting better on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Google Analytics. If you see the image on the right, that is the conversation prism or the social prism. It's put out by Brian Solis, who's a thought leader in social. He's been putting this out yearly for probably the last 8 or 9 years. And so I find it interesting because it segments all the different social feeds that you can, if you're looking to see if you want to break out in something, or if you want to see if something's still popular, the social prism is a good image to look at. Next slide. And then I figured I would just give you some thoughts from current thought leaders. Brian Solis, who had the social prism. He believes that Twitter is the window to relevance, but Facebook is the homepage to your social web. It is the biggest platform, but although there are others, Facebook's influence is it can't be compared. Maury Smith, who is another thought leader, she said, always think about relationships first. And this is so true. When marketers move in, the audience moves out. So it's all about making engagement a little personal. And then Brian Fonzo, I saw him at a conference, and he said, and this is, I find this to be true as well, everything Facebook does influences all other social platforms. And if you think about it, when they change their algorithm, other platforms start changing theirs. When they put out the cover photo and made it so much bigger, all the other platforms followed suit. I cannot see my slide. Oh, okay. And then I don't consider myself a thought leader, but I figured I would slip this in anyway. I believe, and there are people that don't always agree with me on this, to have a different strategy for every social platform that you're on, because they all mean different things. LinkedIn is a B2B network. Facebook, people connect at night to their friends or on mobile with their friends, so the content has to be a little softer. And Twitter is basically a news feed, so it keeps moving very quickly. So you can feature other people's content as well as your own. Next slide. For Twitter, my rules have always been be consistent, tweet every day, multiple times a day. And I did not put this on here, but use hashtags. Hashtags help people search on Twitter. Post to the relevant times to your audience. If your audience, I know general contractors and subcontractors, they're up at the crack of dawn buying supplies and things like that. So you might want to have posts that go out early. And in order to do that, you should use a scheduler. There's several. There's Buffer, there's Hootsuite, and they're all relatively good. And they'll schedule your content so you can do it in advance. I know on Buffer will pull the images from the content you're sharing, so you don't have to upload that separately. I always think to use an image in every post because images attract attention. They say things that words just can't express. And posts, when I include images in my posts, they always do significantly better. Very critical is to review your notifications and acknowledge your audience. If somebody goes out of their way to share some of your content, thank them, or share some of their content. Not a lot of people use this, but the list function in Twitter is a good way to segment people that you want to follow or companies that you want to follow. You can have construction, you can have commercial construction, you can segment the list any which way you want, and you can follow people's lists if you want to. And so that's kind of cool too. If you like somebody else's list, you can follow their list. I always believe engagement comes first, so always engage. Try to tag people and companies. This is important. I have found that when I tag, if I put out somebody else's content and I tag the publisher and I tag the writer, that's a good icebreaker to get to know somebody, maybe in industry media or something like that. And so if you send them a pitch or something a little bit later on, they'll probably recognize your name and they're more likely to respond to you. And very popular, GIFs, memes, and videos, always popular on Twitter. And so, don't be afraid to be a little creative with that. Next slide. Okay, with Facebook. Facebook has some things that a lot of people didn't know. Facebook does not really like YouTube videos because they have Facebook videos now. So if you have a video that you want to put out on social, share them separately to Facebook and to YouTube. Facebook gives a lot of attention to videos that are uploaded directly into Facebook. And also live, I saw this at a conference earlier this year, live videos like Facebook Live, streaming videos do get 6 times more engagement than native videos. So don't be afraid to try Facebook Live. Facebook prefers photos without links. And so a lot of people will ask me, well, how am I supposed to do this if I can't put a link in there? So what I tell people to do, let's say you have an article and the photo is compelling and you want people to click on it because it goes to your website, post the picture and then shorten the link and put it in the comments section. And you can add a summary to the top of the photo, and you can just say the link will follow in a comment section, and they don't penalize you for that. Facebook does not like hashtags, and a lot of people, I still see a lot of hashtag use on brand pages. They count links. They take hashtags and links. They penalize posts for that. So you're going to be less likely to get your post out into a mainstream if it has hashtags and links in it. Also, earlier this year, late 2017, Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO and founder of Facebook, said that he wanted Facebook to be about meaningful interactions. And so meaningful interactions, that means listen and understanding the consumer. The days of broadcasting are over, not just pushing out content. You have to listen and have careful dialogue. A person liking or commenting on another person, not a page. So if you have somebody that comments on your post, on your post for your brand page, and then somebody comments to that person's comment, that's a meaningful interaction. Pages that friends share, that's another way that they count as a meaningful interaction. A person sharing a post in Messenger and having a group dialogue, another meaningful interactions. And longer comments weigh more than shorter comments. So if you tell your friends, hey, can you comment on this or whatever, if it's just something that says, hey, great video or something like that, versus somebody that has 2 to 3 sentences on what the video means to them, or maybe a recommendation for the video or something, that longer comment will weigh a lot more through Facebook's algorithm. Next, LinkedIn. LinkedIn, I thought this was an interesting stat. Traffic from LinkedIn generated the highest visitor to lead conversion rate. It's 277% higher than Twitter or Facebook. I got that from HubSpot. I believe in using influencers on LinkedIn. 61% of LinkedIn's membership do not use them. Try to be an influencer, not a marketer. And the way to do that is when you're posting, tell me something I don't know. Or if you're reading somebody's post, comment on it with thoughtful writing on other brands or other people's posts. It's Stephanie Salmons says it's the connect with me versus buy from me. Be proactive and reach out one-on-one. I've had a lot of really good luck reaching out to people, journalists, influencers that I would like to talk to, or maybe do business with or something like that. LinkedIn, just going through their messaging and reaching out to somebody. I've always had really good luck with that, even more so than email. Stephanie Salmon says messaging is the new email. Another successful strategy that I've had is to post and comment in LinkedIn groups. There are multiple numbers of construction groups on LinkedIn. If you have your own unique content, a lot of these groups will let you post your content on there. And in the groups, people are more likely to comment than actually going to a brand page. They might not even know who you are. And this is a good way to get your business out there is through LinkedIn groups. Next. YouTube. I think I'm most excited about YouTube this year because YouTube is the second largest search engine globally. And because it's a search engine optimization works on YouTube videos. So you want to optimize in the video, you want to optimize your titles, descriptions, your about sections. On your videos, you want to optimize the descriptions and titles for that. Create playlists for your videos. Take 3 to 6 of your videos that have a common theme and create a playlist around it. Have titles and descriptions for each playlist. The interesting thing about platforms is YouTube is very intentional. That's why SEO works on it. Facebook is more accidental. It just kind of shows up in your stream. So there's not a whole lot you can do to make it optimized to where people will see a lot of it other than sharing it. But YouTube is very effective, very, very effective if you have things optimized correctly. And the good news is not a lot of firms in the AEC have their sites optimized in YouTube. So there's a lot of potential for growth and getting a new audience and increasing your branding. Next. Google Analytics. If you have a website, if you have a website and you are not on Google Analytics, find some way to you need to find some way to measure. Google Analytics is great because it's free. And all you have to do is take the JavaScript code and put it in the architecture of your website, and you create a Google Analytics account, and you're set to go. So the first thing you should do is to benchmark and get everything at your starting levels as to what social media platforms are, how they're influencing your website. After you do that, and you're putting out your own original content, always make sure to have a campaign code attached to the URL for any content coming from your website. This is really important because you can measure from Google Analytics how much traffic is coming to your website from these different social media platforms. Also, another thing is when you do attach campaign codes, you have to be careful as to if you're using a scheduler or shortener, which ones you're going to use, because Buffer, although it's very popular, when you shorten a link in Buffer, what happens is it strips out all of the Google Analytics coding. So you won't see any measurements from that in your Google Analytics account. So make sure that Hootsuite doesn't do that. So Hootsuite might be a good alternative for your own unique content. You want to set your objectives, create your goals. And for social reporting, I like to use two different reports, the network referrals and the channels report. The channels report will give you a little bit more information on the social channels, and the network referrals will break them down by channels. And I find that to be very helpful. And if you have campaign codes attached to your URLs, you can also look up those based on medium and source codes. And finally, the behavior report in Google gives you all of the search terms that visitors search for on your website. This is really, really good information, particularly if you're producing content on your website. It's also really good to put those type of search terms in your social communications and on your YouTube channel. If you're optimizing your YouTube channel, use some of those search terms on your platform.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Deborah. That was very informative. Lots of facts there. I have a hand cramp, so I'm going to turn it over to Kate Fisher now. And Kate, take it away.
All right. Hello, everyone. So here at Hanley Wood, we, as many of you know, have a variety of publications. We also work with some clients. So just wanted to give, a few top line suggestions, followed for some social media success, and then followed by an example from some of our own experiences in creating content across social. So definitely love seeing that all of the survey participants are actually using social media. So let's go ahead and dive into the first of our principles for social media success, which is to conserve your resources. So you don't have to be everywhere, and I feel like we definitely like to use cross-channel communications. We certainly at Hanley Wood want to optimize our content and really amplify it and put it out in the appropriate channels. But given the number of people in the survey that are managing their social media internally, I think it is really important for us to all keep in mind that we can really focus our efforts. All of these channels, there are ways to do a little bit of initial research and identify the places where your audience is already. So, a lot of people use Twitter sort of as an event-based news type of channel. Maybe that's where your audience is. Maybe they're more on Facebook or LinkedIn, and just doing a little bit of initial research into perhaps the groups or the other, some of the audiences that are actually out there, and then concentrating really on putting your content into those channels. So, keeping in mind that if I'm on Facebook, that's really become if that's my preferred social channel, that's sort of become my news feed at this point. So, and then, thinking about in terms of the ways that you can use specific channels, again, we have some publications and some clients where we sort of keep the lights on channels like Twitter, where we're not necessarily feeding that sort of content machine multiple times a day and constantly, but we're keeping the lights on, keeping our audiences there informed, and then really amping up that content around specific events where we know we're going to get a lot more conversation. If we're at a trade show, if we're at an industry event, sharing out content that's relevant from that particular event, or where we really feel like we're going to get a lot more traffic and a lot more conversation and engagement. So, and then as Deborah said, really having a defined strategy for each of those channels. They all have different roles. The audiences there are different. The mindsets and the uses are definitely all different. Which sort of leads then to the next key, which is really creating relatable content. So around that, we really look at our social communities as communities. So providing content that's helpful and that shows our audiences and our community members that we understand the issues that they're dealing with, and building relationships around those real connections. So whether it's, driving content, again, around helping them build their business, perhaps there are specific tools that you can provide, or really providing inspiration in some instances, and especially if it's consumer, that may be a lot of what drives some of the initial engagement, and then really building, even a deeper relationship with them based on that, because as we have found, once these communities get to know you, get to trust you, understand that you really are listening to them, when they really are interested in making a purchase decision and finding a solution, then they're going to really turn to you for that. And then we can move to the next step. And in terms of measurement, we really like to focus on measuring what's going to matter. So we focus on engagement in terms of, looking at what the industry has sort of come to call vanity metrics in terms of subscribers, followers, fans. Those numbers are often impressive, and they make us feel great most of the time. But they don't always mean a lot if you're not generating much engagement, if you're not getting those people involved in the conversation. And so even within those engagements, we sort of weight them differently. So someone may very passively view a video, and you can't necessarily expect them to take the same type of action that they would with other pieces of content. So one of the things that we think about in those kinds of terms is that a like is not necessarily as valuable on Facebook, say, as any one of the other reactions. So if a person taps and gives you a thumbs up, gives you a like, that's great. But if they actually take the time to think about an even deeper reaction, that's actually even more valuable, because it actually takes a little bit more commitment, not a lot, but a little bit more. And then, moving into thinking about how much more valuable a comment is, because they're invested enough to actually take the time to type something. And sharing is even more valuable to us in terms of, our content and getting our content out there. And then really even, on LinkedIn, Facebook, most of the channels, sort of the holy grail of engagement is to get someone to share or comment with a tag. So actually including and drawing one of their community members into the conversation, because then that person has just personalized your content. So it becomes a very meaningful interaction, as Deborah just mentioned. That's one of the goals of Facebook for this year. And so that's really, the ideal would be for your community members to prove the relevance of your content by sharing it specifically with other community members and tagging them. So to that end, we at Hanley Wood often do a lot of test and learn. So on the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about what we look at. So, specifically looking at different audiences, the creative that might resonate more with within certain channels, and placements even beyond social media. So, certainly social has made testing much quicker, easier, a lot more affordable than it used to be in terms of, a lot of times we were sending out emails, those kinds of things. So, and Facebook within, Facebook, they have custom audiences. LinkedIn certainly has a lot of great options in terms of that. But looking at being able to set up, customer lists within Facebook, pixel traffic, looking at the users who've engaged with you, all of those kinds of things. And they actually have a really simple and ingenious split test that literally allows you to test, certain audiences against each other to see which is most efficient and most responsive. And looking at that in terms of, again, the audiences or the creative allows you to sort of establish a winning, a winner in that sort of creative campaign, for instance. And then you can move into testing different placements. And again, looking at going even beyond social into potentially digital display and using some of that in your retargeting and sort of taking the next step with your audiences into a deeper story and moving them, one step closer to your desired action. And so one of the things that I wanted to touch on was experimenting with ads. So looking at the fact that 49% of the survey respondents are not doing any sort of paid promotion around social. It's certainly understandable, but as we sort of move into social media being more monetized and increasing usage, it's certainly becoming a little bit more of a pay-to-play space. But the good news is that the self-serve ad options across channels have definitely made it much easier and so much more affordable to try paid promotions than they used to be. So, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, really, really robust targeting options. And so a good way to start, if you have organic content on those channels that performs well, would be to put, a small budget behind that and boost it out to a new audience. So your content, that organic content, if it's gotten good engagement, it's sort of already proved its relevance and its value to the people that you want to connect with. So, for, I would say as little as $25 even, you can really ensure that you get some more visibility and sort of prove it even further beyond the audience that you're traditionally perhaps engaging with, so that you can expand that and really get, more eyes and more visibility for your content. So just as an example, this is a little bit higher level investment, but for, an investment of $500 a month for a quarter on one specific channel, we were able to increase one of our clients' reach by 38%, but the real payoff for them was a 98% increase in engaged users and an 81% increase in traffic to their site. So, for a fraction of that, with the right targeting, you can make a big difference in perhaps generating leads and capturing those leads on your site. So then we just have an example of a project that we at Hanleywood worked with the TriPoint group. So this responsive home, this was in 2016, and we partnered with the TriPoint group to build the 2 homes pictured here. And they were built for flexibility and really targeted to new homeowners entering the market who were looking to purchase a home, and really very specifically to the millennial market. The project homes that we create sometimes provide a unique challenge to us in that the target audiences are really varied and multiple. So we're looking at trying to showcase things for both trade, so builders, architects, for our sponsors, looking at mainstream media for awareness of the projects, and then, for consumers in general. And so particularly for this project, for these projects, we were looking at millennial home buyers. And so that's where, on the next slide, you'll see that's sort of where our social media took root, was looking at where we could reach and extend beyond our own media channels to sort of create and connect with this audience that was unique to this project. So we actually created channels on Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, and Twitter that were specifically dedicated to this responsive home. And on the next slide, you'll see a little bit more of the social channels in terms of looking at Twitter and House. But over the period of about 3 months, we built the channels out, used both organic and some paid tactics. But we're successful with building an audience of around 5,000 on Facebook. And there was a little bit of lag with the other channels, but that's where the paid tactics were utilized to extend the reach in a shorter amount of time. So we partnered with House to extend some of the storytelling capabilities and give a little bit more validation and bring a little more authenticity to the channel. And then one of the major things, in terms of that, was making sure that we really did, that we had some other third-party validation around the story. So having Builder, TriPoint, House, and some others validating those channels and the messaging was really a huge help in terms of getting the content out there and really getting eyes on it and spreading it more widely. So the next slide shows a little bit of some of the paid efforts. You'll see on the left there a reach of over 208,000 people, and some of that was paid promotion of the content, but it was really only about $2,500, and expert staff, of course, helping with create all of the content. We were able to build out the channels and successfully engage with the right audiences so that we could reach, again, beyond our own media channels. And the results were pretty impressive for us. We were very happy with that. So on the next slide, you can see that in the end, we had over 100,000 total impressions on Twitter, 9.6 million impressions on Facebook in a little under 12 months. And we were really pleased that, we did take the time, we dedicated some time and resources to it, but we feel like, if with this example, you can see that you can create a campaign that really goes beyond expectations in leveraging social. And, this also had really great legs across other sort of owned media channels and press in general. So it was really well received, and we were pleased with that.
All right. Well, excellent information and a great example, Kay. Appreciate it. So now it is time for Q&A. So please use the GoToWebinar control panel to ask some questions. I'll get started and with Deborah and ask you, Deborah, what do you think is the most effective social media network for construction brands?
I look on my previous experience, and I would have to say LinkedIn. I could tell you that just based from Google Analytics, LinkedIn provided more hits to our website than Twitter and Facebook. And in some months, more hits to our website from Twitter and Facebook and Instagram combined. It was just, it's a B2B network, and people go to LinkedIn really not to play around. They're looking for information. And so I think for construction, I still think LinkedIn probably rules.
Okay. Kate, could you describe the role of content in social media, since content is one of your roles at Hanley Wood?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, in my experience, content is really the engine that drives all of these connections in these communities. I think great content, again, is really, it's what helps to humanize the brands, the products. It's what builds interest and helps the audiences really comprehend that you understand what they need in terms of solutions, but also just, again, really helps to build those relationships. I think if you think about it in terms of what social really means, it is all about connecting with people, and the best way to do that is through interesting, informative, useful content that they really can identify with.
Good. Yeah, I agree. And Deborah, you recently have been working with the largest construction lead generation brand in the world. So from that perspective, what do you think social networks and driving lead generation? What is your perspective on that?
Oh, I think it definitely helps with lead generation. I know that previously, we would have blog posts where we would put out some leads, and those always scored better than any other blog posts that we put out. And a lot of that was due to the good writing of the blog editor, but also the content of some teaser leads in there, and we put them out on social, and they always did really well on social as well.
Right, and I'll comment on these last two questions as well. Often we are involved. The Construction Marketing Association blog is very high traffic and very lead generating as well. So we really believe that a blog can be like the foundation for a lot of construction brands, and that social media networks then end up being like the distribution mechanism for that. So, and a term I didn't hear today was the word education, but I do believe that's a piece of the puzzle regarding content and social media, that you're often trying to educate your market And then once you move over to lead generation, how can you make that happen? Well, that is, again, it's coming back to content and social media distributing content. And but the lead generation aspect of it is offers and calls to action, or CTAs. So we're always involved in multiple offers, multiple calls to action. And I heard the term don't be a marketer, be an educator. So yeah, we're not trying to ram sales down the end user's throat. We're offering educational pieces, that kind of thing. So we're getting close to the top of the hour. So I'd like to ask both of our panelists, and Kate, maybe you could go first. And what do you see anything on the horizon for social media? And what do you think is going to be maybe the next big thing in social media?
I see a couple things, and I think both of the things that sort of are top of mind for me at this point might be considered sort of evolutions of things that are out there. One of them being video. Video is it's not going anywhere. It's not going to go away, but it's certainly evolving. And one of the interesting things is that it seems like it's going into sort of divergent paths. So there are folks who believe that it's going shorter and shorter. Giphy just launched a film festival, and that's around 18 seconds or something, I think, is what they're looking for. But I also think longer form and vertical video are finding their places. Instagram TV is certainly taking off, and we've seen Facebook making a little bit more of an effort to find a place for some longer form video as well. So I think particularly as mobile content consumption goes up, that's definitely still going to increasingly have a place there. And I think the second thing is more of the personal sort of one-to-one connections that are taking place in social, with whether it's marketing or actually just connections in terms of Messenger and LinkedIn messaging having an increasing role in terms of, again, just communication forms for, social media and marketing in general. I think that's really going to take off.
Excellent. And Deborah, what is your perspective on the next big thing?
I agree with Kate about engagement and meaningful interactions, which should bring on more personalized content and user personas. One of the big things, I was at a conference earlier this year that a lot of the speakers spoke about were chatbots. There are currently over 100,000 on Facebook Messenger. It's great for customer service, particularly for a bigger company. In-platform messaging, like Kate mentioned. The short-lived type of content that's on Snapchat and Instagram, where it disappears after a while, kind of creates urgency, and it creates the increase in fear of missing out. That's another big thing that's very popular now, and it'll probably continue. Very much live streaming along with video. Most of the platforms are encouraging live streaming. And also, this wasn't mentioned, but I think there's going to be more governance after Twitter cleaned out a lot of accounts that were bot type. I think there's going to be probably more governance on social as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you, our esteemed panelists, Kate Fisher and Deborah Rial. And I'd like to tell you just a little bit about the Construction Marketing Association. We're a network of marketing professionals and executives in construction-related fields. We have professional training and resources, information, networking, and recognition. You can find us at our website, our blog, our LinkedIn group, Twitter and Facebook, as well as YouTube. And we have our one of our biggest programs of the year is our CMA Star Awards, which is our recognition program. We have over 70 categories in all of marketing communications, and that deadline is the end of this month for the early entry deadline of September 28th, and the final deadline of October 26th. Our next webcast is on the subject of construction lead services, and that will be November 15th. You can see this on our events page. We're having an executive from Dodge Data and Analytics present on that one, so that is good. And we have many other events scheduled, again, on the CMA events page. So with that, we have this complete presentation. Again, a link being sent out to you in 24 hours. We have some resource links on social media, as mentioned earlier, and then also the panelist bios in the appendix as well. So again, this will be available as early as tomorrow. And if we did not get your question, we will review and see if we can follow up on that. And with that, I'd like to again thank our panelists and thank you, our registrants, for joining us today. And please join us in the future as well. So thank you.